So, okay, Dave, what do we do if we don't have that sort of advantage where we can play for a kingside attack straight away, or early on with an advantage in space, or having more development, or just having more pieces near the enemy king? Well, you might be able to attack a weakness, pick on a weakness, and either your opponent's pieces get in a tangle or they get distracted away from the king so that you'll be able to attack a bit later on. Here's an example of a game that I found very many years ago in a collection of games by Irving Cherniev called Logical Chess, which I enjoyed very much and I'd like to share with you. It's in an opening that you might not many of you play yet, called the Queen's Gambit. You might have heard of, at least, where white tries to tempt black into giving up the centre, and if they don't give up the centre, they defend the pawn. Well, white says, well, perhaps this bishop is not feeling very happy about the way that black's had to defend the pawn. So that's the Queen's Gambit, and we have a bit more development, as you might expect. Bishop to knight to d7 here. There's a terrible trap, which I don't think many people fall into in this position, where it looks like white might be able to win a pawn here, but because the knight is pinned, but the knight only looks pinned. If in fact we play, we capture the piece, and after a check, we find that the only way for white to get out of check is to put the queen in the way, and after takes and takes, white did win a pawn, but black won a piece. So this is quite cheerful for black. So that's a trap which white, I don't think, was ever going to fall into. E3, C6, A3, just waiting. Well, what white is waiting for is for black to take on this square, and until they do that, they don't want to move their bishop, otherwise they'll move their bishop twice. So we have a little white is going to try and find useful moves to make that don't involve moving the bishop, and stubbornly black refuses to take on c4, and is also trying to find useful moves to make without taking on c4, but finally white moves the bishop and black captures on c4 to make the bishop waste some time. And now b5, chasing the bishop around and poking the other bishop, castling, and bishop to b7. Now in this position, black's bishop still hasn't found a very useful diagonal. It's still blocked in by this pawn, and this pawn has actually become a backward pawn on an open file. So that's a bit of a weakness, and white wants to keep that pawn weak and threaten to take it, and all the while that happens, the pawn is vulnerable, and also the bishop that's stuck behind it is pretty useless. As Lisa Simpson used to say, a blockaded bishop is no use to anyone. Knight comes to e4 to cover that c5 square. Takes, and now white's attacking this c6 pawn with queen and bishop, and black decides that they don't like that white bishop sitting there, and they're going to attack it and make it move out of the way, which they do, and now black defends the c pawn, and also perhaps is thinking about moving the c pawn to c5, and allowing the bishop a view of the middle of the board. So nice move by black there, queen b6, very logical. Rook to c1, pinning down the c pawn again, rook ac8, again threatening to move the c pawn forward. So this is all about white's attack on this weak c6 pawn. And now white says, well, you might think you might be able to move that one day, but I'm going to try and stop you. And black actually just in this position pretty well gives up. So runs away with queen, knight e5. Now in all of that battle, black's actually created a second weakness on e6, and actually e6 is quite hard to attack, or at least hard to attack lots of times, but the square in front of that backward pawn is a really nice square for the knight, a knight outpost we sometimes say. Black's trying to counter-attack on the b pawn, and white moves queen to b3, attacking the defending the pawn on b4, but also now attacking that weak e6 point. So black started off with one weak pawn and has now got two, and black defends the e pawn by uncovering a defence by the rook on e8. So we now have a that's now defended, but actually white had a second idea, which is to take the pawn on f5, and it can't be captured by this pawn on e6 because the attack of the queen down to the king. So that's a pinned piece, pinned pawn, which is only pretending to defend f5. So white's won a pawn, it seems. Queen to f6, bishop to b1, and now, hurrah, says black, I've regained the pawn, which indeed they have. So, but black's still got their two weaknesses, and the game actually ends rather quickly from here. Rook to c5, which definitely pins down that weakness on c6. a4 by by black. Queen a2. The queen comes back to d6. Queen to c2, which definitely reinforces the pressure on that c pawn, but also looks over towards the enemy king. Rook cd8, check, king f8, and bishop to g6. And now if the rook moves forward to e7, then this is going to be checkmate, and if black doesn't move the rook forward, they're going to lose the exchange, and that's enough to lose the game between these two very good players. And black resigned in this position. I mean, you might want to play on a bit from here, but that was that was enough. So in fact, although all of the first part of the game was about the attacking of this weak c6 pawn, and trying to black got in a bit of a tangle, creating other weaknesses on that side of the board, and when white decided to switch over to attacking the king, there wasn't much that black could do about it. So if you don't have conditions to attack straight away, you to attack the king straight away, you might be able to attack something else and then attack the king. So this is attacking a weakness rather than attacking the king straight away.